All right, before we begin today's episode, we wanted to give a shout out to our patrons over at Patreon.
These are the show sponsors.
The show stoppers.
Holy cow. We got Eric Sari, Andy Herbrandt, Lauren L., Paul C., Hanson Screenprint, and of course, Rock the Green.
Rock the Green.
Thank you so much for keeping the lights on. Eric, cue up that intro.
Hey, welcome to the Wisconsin Drunken History Podcast. We are your hosts, Eric Sturgeon.
And I'm Russell Sari.
This podcast is about all things Wisconsin, history, music, culture, and beer. Although we don't often use strong language, the content is not intended for young audiences, so listener discretion is advised.
If you love the bluegrass music you hear in this intro, please check out Dang It's from Madison, Wisconsin by visiting their website, dang-its.com. Now on to the show.
Alrighty then. Welcome to another episode of Wisconsin Drunken History Podcast, your weekly dose of the Dairy State. And we are your hosts, as always. I'm Eric.
And I'm Russ.
And we have another edition of our yearly Halloween series. Oh. This is the second episode in that series. And today we are talking about another monster in another lake.
Yes.
And this one is the Rock Lake monster known as Rocky.
He's coming out of the water, throwing punches and bowls.
Yeah, and his arch nemesis, Apollo Creed. So this is another one of those lake monsters that, hey, we've probably all heard about over time in the myth and the lore. So, and this one also climbed the steps in Philly, you know. And before we get jumping in on any of that awesomeness, we also wanted to tell you that we have music in this episode from a band called You Win, and we have another beer review, of course, more of the How Many Locos, because what would this episode be without that, you know? And we have a special interview with Pour Another Round. So really great stuff coming up. Before we dive in on any of that, we just wanted to thank you all for listening and doing what you do and being, you know, the best part of all of this. And continue to reach out. Let us know how things are going. Give us suggestions of things you want to hear, stories, music, if you have any suggestions of bands from the area. And hey, the best place to do any of that is our website, WisconsinDrunkenHistory.com. You can contact us through that page. While you're there, start shopping. We've got all of our logo merch out there. Again, it is fall. We are in the heart of October. It's sweater and sweatshirt weather right now. Go ahead and rock our logo on your hoodie.
And if you haven't already liked our social media, I try to post every time there's a TeePublic sale as much as I can, so you can get a little bit of a discount, save on the shirts and everything.
Sometimes it's like 35% off.
It's huge.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And hey, you know, the best thing that anybody can do, I guess, for the little thing that we do here and we're trying to grow is word of mouth by sharing and then also giving us a like, a rate and review through Apple Podcasts, through YouTube, any of those things. And hey, you know, give us a 5-star and throw in a little paragraph or two about what you like, you know, and then also our Patreon. So if you head over to our website and there's a little Patreon link up there, what's nice about that is it literally puts money directly into the fund for this show.
Exactly.
You know, there's money that goes into this thing every day.
We buy the music to support the bands.
Exactly.
Like we buy beer to review. We have to pay server fees. Yeah. So this is awesome.
I mean, today alone we spent $5 on some tunes, and we easily could get this stuff sent to us by these bands, but we want to support.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. If they're people are gonna support us, we want to be able to support local bands, music, local breweries.
So and then obviously equipment costs and stuff too. So when we have things kind of on the fritz, we've got to replace that stuff, and it really does kind of help keep things just rolling, so that way we don't miss a week, and we want to keep delivering really cool content. So thank you again for everything that you do. Now let's jump in to the water head first, because why else would you jump in the water?
Rocky.
How else would you?
So
this is Rocky.
So before I talk about the legendary monster himself, first let me set the scene for you. Around 20 miles east of Madison in Jefferson County lays a lake that covers roughly 1,365 acres of land, and it's at its deepest point about 87 feet deep. One unique thing about the lake is underwater, which has stumped archaeologists, is there's underwater pyramids that lay on the lake beds.
Nah.
Yeah. So they must have been put there at some point and man-made. And a lot of people are leaning towards the Mississippian cultures that once called this area home. These mounds or pyramids have been seen from the Midwest all the way up into to our Canadian bros.
Yo.
And are still somewhat of a mystery how they got there in the first place. However, these pyramids are not the only thing that calls this body of water home.
Right.
Woo.
There's a guy named Steve also who calls
Steve
it
lives
home.
over there too, and so does Bob and George.
yeah.
I think, and maybe Phil too. I'm
He
not
really
sure.
likes Irish Spring, the 2-in-1,
Oh, yeah.
where you can wash your body and your hair. If you can donate a bottle to Steve in the Rock Lake, that'd be great.
And I always laugh because they got like the farm names too, like Phil Bildale, George.
Phil Bildale?
Phil Bildale, FBD.
Fabildale.
Phil Bildale. Just
Wow.
a one-word name.
His parents just couldn't decide which
So
name
Phil
was
Bildale.
nice. And he had 3 grandpas, so they gave him all the grandpas' names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Rock Lake monster, who is more commonly known as Rocky, was first spotted in the lake in 1867 by a man who's simply known as Harbeck, who had claimed to see a large lizard serpentine animal weaving and breaking up through the water.
Who does that fucking guy think he is? Prince?
Harbeck,
Yeah. They just call me Harbeck.
formerly
right?
known as Harbeck.
Formerly known as Madonna.
This man who lived in the area who also claimed to have encountered it outside of the waters, as well as it was amphibious, so it could come out on land and go back into the water, like slither and come back. So the man said the sea serpent was hidden within the weeds and the vegetation along the shoreline.
Wow.
And as he was walking past, he startled the beast when all of a sudden the creature's head rose up out of the water and began hissing at him before jetting back into the depths of the lake. Many other witness sightings began rolling in with similar descriptions. They would report seeing a thick and girthy serpent swimming. That was just me, guys. Just kidding.
That was just Russ
It was just
hanging
me
out.
naked hanging out just under the water surface, and occasionally would break from the water.
Thick and girthy.
It's a girth snake. What is
Wow.
that? Hey.
I'm
so the-
sorry, I just can't get past that.
I love the word fucking girthy. I think it's fucking hilarious.
Oh, man.
So the water surface and occasionally would break up from the water and raise its head snake and hiss at onlookers. This was kind of the MO of Rocky, if you will. And around the end of the 1870s, another man named R. Hassman spoke of his encounter and how he was either fishing or standing still on the water's edge. And as he said, saw what appeared to be a massive limb floating on the surface of the water. But as he watched it more intently, realized that this was no tree, but a large beast of some sort. Scared of the sheer size of the creature, he would do like anyone would do and began poking the body of the creature with a sharpened water stick
Of course.
to check it to see if it was live.
Hell yeah.
After stabbing into the creature, it suddenly sprang to life, and all attempts to hold on to the stick to keep the monster was pretty much couldn't do it, right? I mean, this thing's a beef. This thing's girthy.
This thing is like
He's a girth monster.
Big McLarge huge.
Beef McLarge.
Yeah, fucking beef Brockbone.
Rock Brickman. So, of course, this massive serpent was a bit stronger than Hassman and made a mad dash to the middle of the deep portion of the lake and then disappeared from the man's sight. Hassman was quoted as saying, "I could not more hold it than I could of an ox." So the thing has some guns, right? Like it's a girthy snake with guns.
Does this guy often try to hold an ox?
Dude,
also?
this guy holds girthy things often, I'm thinking.
My name's
So
R. Hassman, and I hold oxes.
I grip girthy things like snakes and wangs.
I like to poke things with sticks and then
Grab
pick up oxes.
The next major sighting of Rocky was in 1882 when two men by the names of Ed McKenzie and D.W. Sabert had challenged each other to rowboat race across Rock Lake. As they began paddling, they were speeding across the lake at pretty good speeds when they both encountered what they believed to be a large tree trunk floating on top of the water, and the two cautiously approached the limb. And when, like our last encounter, suddenly sprang to life, and the large neck rose nearly 3 feet out of the water, opened its mouth wide, hissed directly at them, and again the monster would dive back down into the murky depths of Rock Lake. Both of them were completely shocked by the event, but continued moving when all of a sudden the head again breached the surface right next to Mackenzie's boat. And being scared shitless, he did the America thing and yelled, "Bring a gun! Take it over there! There's a big thing out here! Come bring a gun, quick!" Sabert would take an oar and slap the water in order to spook the creature away from the boats. Eventually, the shouts would be heard by John Lund, who had gathered up all of his men, and they headed out there as where the action was taking place. And one man named Wilson was strapped with a shotgun and took aim and shot at the creature. When Rocky turned towards the boat, showed his large teeth, let out a really big loud signature hiss, and dove back down into the depths yet again.
Wow.
And after all 3 boats returned to shore with haste, and they told the tale which spread among the townsfolk in the area.
Yeah.
And after this encounter, however, the sightings would kind of die down until about around the 1890s, when a farmer around Red Cedar Lake, which was believed to be connected to Rock Lake by an underground stream, but I don't know why that's significant, because he can technically breach land. So he's like a snake, right?
Yeah,
so he can
exactly.
technically breach. Doesn't really matter how he got there. He could slither across the land. And
Right, right.
So a pig farmer reported a creature that was 20 foot in length, snagged a hog in its jaws from the farm, all the way and pulled it all the way to the shoreline and underneath the water with him. And many people believed may have become the new location where Rocky had settled. Many of the animal carcasses half eaten would begin to wash up along the shorelines. In 1892, a farmer by the name William Ware reported 5 of his sheep had been snatched by the creature and dragged to the lake in the course of merely one night. And many people actually closed up shop in this area and began to move out because of the Rocky panic.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, the reports of Rocky had kind of stopped altogether. Many people believed that the monster just died off, or so they thought. And it wasn't until about 50 years, in 1943, a 15-year-old Joseph Davis was out fishing in a boat when he spotted the brownish-black colored serpentine body of the monster. And unlike other times, the head never left the water and breached and hissed, but it did lunge up its torso about 7 feet into the air and drop back down into the depths of the lake. So I'm guessing it's kind of like a worm going back to its hole. It's like, you know what I mean? Like the little tail just flapping and japping.
Yeah.
This girthy tail just slapping kids. This was, I didn't want to say that. That sounded fucked up. I'm just, don't, just forget I said that. So this was, and this was officially the last sighting of Rocky. So was it real or fake? Eric, thoughts?
I mean, again,
you never know what those 1800s reporting. Right?
Yeah,
you just never know. I mean, it could be a legend that kind of just went too crazy, and then people were claiming they saw it. I don't know.
I mean, we know more about what's underwater now than we did in 1800s.
Yeah, that's true.
So certain creatures that were relatively unknown then, and that would surface, every once in a while, I'm sure would scare the living shit out of any of these people, and then they just make up these little wives' tales. But I'm wondering, more so out of any of this, who the fuck challenges each other to a fucking boat race?
Is that like the way to slap a man? Like take your glove and smack him like, I challenge you to a boat race.
You want to row really fast against me, buddy? Because I bet you my arms are better than yours. I don't know. I
bet you a case of Busch lattes I can beat you.
I just feel like there's something more there. Like
it sounds unrealistic or something,
right?
Like the story just altogether.
And they probably made something up because they had to tell their wives like why their boat was broken or something, or like why they lost the oar.
You could have just told Wendy you're at the bar getting fucked up.
Yeah,
like you don't have to say you fought a snake.
I
right?
lost in a boat race and I lost my fucking oar, and
I fought a 20-foot snake that hissed at me. Like,
yeah.
My wife's. I'm gonna be like. I'm gonna be honest.
Unbelievable.
No one's gonna believe you.
Yeah.
Like, just say you're at the bar or the strip club, right? You don't have to say you fought a girthy snake. Like that just sounds even more messed up. I went to back alley and fought a girthy snake. Holy smokes! I don't know.
Yeah.
Like no one wants to hear that. No one wants to come home and say you fought a girthy snake.
It's an odd excuse, and I mean, whatever works. I guess if you wanted to save yourself from being in trouble. Sure.
I don't know if Rocky's the best excuse, but
it's a very bad excuse.
He's out there as an excuse. So now before I close up the episode here, I do have to state that in Ho Chunk legend there is talks of a monster similar to Rocky, wide jaws filled with many teeth and a body that looked like a serpent. They speak of how the monster would snag and swallow people whole from the shoreline. Their belief is that there are many of these creatures in the area and often would appease the beast by dump offerings of tobacco. So Rocky was like a carcinogen freak too. He's like all hopped up on like nicotine. He's like,
and again,
yeah, baby, just amped up. Like,
we heard the same thing on the last one too about
similar
Devil's
things.
Lake.
Yeah, like the
They're
lizard
like,
beast. There's a lot of lizard creatures.
We don't want you to kill any more of our people, so we're going to sacrifice offerings to you in order to pay you off, and it's just these are all very similar type stories that I think are just urban legends. They're old wives' tales.
So if you got a can of Kodak with you or some Skoal and you're out on Rock Lake, just dump a little in. Make sure Rocky doesn't come up and fuck up your boat.
Throw one out there for Rocky.
Yeah, throw nicotine gum.
Fucking lip,
give him
man.
a fucking cig. He'll take a Lucy any day. Throw a fucking Camel non-filter in there. That fucker will smoke that shit and head back down to the depths and leave you alone. He'll be happy as fuck. So that's going to conclude our episode on Rocky today. And now on to our music segment.
So as promised, here we are at the music segment.
Oh yeah,
and this one is a great new. They're newer. They both had their own separate music projects, and then they sort of had been working behind the scenes on some stuff with each other, and then decided to actually put out a project together, and so they formed You Win, which is
amazing.
An absolutely cool project, and there's only a handful of songs released, and I know they just recently did sort of a collaboration, and all that stuff can be found right on their social medias, and then Spotify is what Russ and I generally use, but then Apple Music also has it as well. And You Win is Russ. You've mentioned like Metric a couple times.
When we first listened to him, I really got like a Metric feel, kind of that indie. Maybe a little bit of like electro sounds with the instruments.
Right.
Just that vocal range kind of similar, I think, to Metric in that range. I think they sound really good, and I'm really proud that they're from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Like, this is just incredible to me. Like, they're another amazing band where I can't wait to see their full length release.
I was just going to say, eagerly awaiting a full length or even, a substantial EP or something that I can put on while I'm doing something, because it's absolutely great music, and I when I first had heard of them and then reached out, I was reluctant because I didn't think that they would be into it, and pretty quickly I got that message back saying we're into it. So cool. Very, very happy to be able to feature them and to do, I guess, our part. And
whatever we can do.
Hopefully, we can get them out to anybody else that's listening here.
We're not getting a million listens, but we're at least getting a couple thousand here and there. So it'll help out with whatever we can do. So
yeah, go and support. So the band is You Win, and the song is Painmonger.
They wanna see us
All right, so that was Painmonger by You Win. And again, I mean, that is just some infectious synth kind of wave stuff that is just electric. I love it. And Russ and I have been listening to bands kind of similar that you can definitely hear influences of, and they're just really, really good. And again, we can't wait to see more from them as well. So we now have a beer review, and we sort of hinted at it on the last episode, and it comes again from Third Space, and it's their really special one that they've been working on for quite some time.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about it on our we had like a behind the scenes episode we put together, like just kind of like to promote the Valley Week, where we talked about how the 5th anniversary beer went from 5 different barrels. So there's a lot of flavors like right away. And a beer like this is it's going to pour more like obviously like a flat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's going to be more of a flat because it's been in a barrel. It's been aged in a barrel.
Correct.
But what I'm getting right away, obviously, they must have been a rum barrel at some point because I'm getting a little bit of the brown sugar molasses. And Eric, do you happen to know the ABV on this one?
It's 16%.
That's what I thought. So this one's a hard hitter.
And in fact, it was I think more particularly like 16.7% because they did. We were talking to Andy and Kevin about it on the 5th anniversary, and he said that they sent in the samples to have them officially tested, and 16.7 I believe was the official hit.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, it is all of that.
It is 16%. Like you're getting that hands down. I mean, like you're getting kind of the beer is still there. Like that maltiness of the beer is still there. It's obviously it's flat 'cause it's been inside a barrel. They're not going to recarb it. You're getting like multiple flavors. I mean, kind of up front, I'm getting like a little bit of a brown sugar, maybe a molasses from like some sort of rum right away. Yeah. And, maybe, I don't know if it was in a bourbon barrel, but are you getting maybe a hint of the malty bourbon too? Like maybe a hint?
Yeah. And so the thing that the one note that I got almost immediately was that of like caramel.
Oh yeah. It's very caramely
and,
for sure.
And so it tastes good and sweet. And then it also has that very boozy-licious flavoring to it as well. And so it's all of that 16%. It is all of those amazing aging flavors that it has been in all of those different barrels over the last 2 or 3 years. And it really takes on all of that. So this beer is actually called Solera. 5. They have a really nice logo that they've created for it.
It's kind of like brown. Cool. It says Third Space 5-year anniversary. Talks a little bit about the beer, about the aging, like we told you.
Right.
Yeah, just a very good beer. And Eric, this came in like a full bomber. I mean, obviously we're just kind of sipping this one just because of how strong it is, and like we gotta obviously sober up and drive home. So we can't drink obviously a full bomber, but have you crushed a bomber by yourself? No, you have not.
So the most I've drank of this at any given time was at the Third Space anniversary get together.
Little small like 8-ounce cup, and that was a lot.
It was a 10-ounce pour.
It was 10 ounce. Oh man, even that was just intense.
Wild.
And, I mean, to start off a night with that would just.
I mean, it really sets the tone, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, like, literally, if you're going to drink a beer like this with this higher percentage, if you have a 10-ounce pour, drink it, you're going to get buzzed. Switch to a cheap beer because you're not going to remember any of the other beers you had afterward, to be honest.
And if we can make a suggestion, their happy place is just a Midwest Pale, and that would be a decent one to switch to.
Yeah, good beer. And actually, you were telling me a story about how they brought this one to a Miller Stadium now. It's a standard pour there.
Yeah, so it was the people at the actual stadium had reached out to Third Space and said, hey, you guys are our brothers right there down,
the River Valley.
Exactly, in the valley. We would really love to put one of your beers on tap here and make it available to everyone. And this is before Miller Park and other stadiums. It was then Miller Park. Now it's American Family Field. But back then, this was before they really did that whole craft beer area. Now they have this beautiful craft beer area with a huge bar, and they have at least 30 beers on tap. It's absolutely amazing.
And I remember, I think you were telling me Lakefront does have a beer there too. Rever West Stein beer, I think, is another one on tap. Yep. Yeah, they have a few of them on there.
You can even get Demise. You can get
very cool.
There's a few really, really good ones that and they're all local for the most part, and amazing selections now. And that whole first time, before any of that kind of took off, Third Space was invited to kind of bring a beer there, which was amazing. And now stadiums across all of the Major League Baseball have something like this. Cincinnati at Great American Ballpark, they have something very, very similar, and big bar, huge craft beer selection. And hey, I encourage most people to look up Cincinnati's beer history, because they have a very rich brewing culture, just like Milwaukee does. And in fact, Cincinnati was actually considered the brewing capital of the world before Milwaukee was.
Cool.
And they have some really neat stuff. And Cincinnati also, they have a lot of times throughout the city, you'll see the pigs with wings, which is a very neat story. And I encourage everybody to look that up, because it's a pretty neat thing.
Yeah, and so before we close this out, you might still be able to get a bomber for the 5th year anniversary one. And if you miss this year, they're moving it to another keg next year, so you'll be able to get anniversary 6 version.
It'll be a whole new barrel aged feel to it.
Yeah,
as well.
It'll have a new flavor. But yeah, again, this is the 5th anniversary beer from Third Space. Check it out. Go down to the brewery and see if you can pick one up for yourself. They have any in the cooler. Make sure you snag one before they're all gone and out of stock. And I think that's going to conclude the beer review.
Grab a seat, gather round, join us for a chat. How many locos you at?
You guys know what that means. How many locos you at?
That sound is always indicative of a really cool person is about to be.
Yeah, and Eric, you were saying you heard this one on 96.5.
Yeah, so I listen to WKLH 96.5 every morning on my way to work. I absolutely love their mornings with WKLH. It's probably the best radio program around right now. And they have a segment that they do called Dairyland Dumbasses. And this one was actually all over the place. You had posted it that same morning.
Actually, where I heard it was from the 608 scanner. So I knew what was going on. I was like, what is even going on here?
Yeah.
So
basically a very unique situation.
Yeah. So the occurrence happened at 9 p.m. this Thursday and was in Beloit, Wisconsin on West Grand Avenue. The subject was sitting in the middle of the road, setting up bar stools all around himself so that traffic would not hit him.
Yeah.
So what's going on here?
You want to know a really good way to also have traffic not hit you? To not be
go
in the middle of the road.
They have a car. But I was joking too, because when the need for a brew hits you, sometimes you just need to set up in the middle of the road, right? You need to just tailgate wherever you want, set up some bar stools around you. Hey, it's the Wisconsin way. Sometimes you just need to tailgate in the middle of the road, pull out the grills, get a couple brewskis, So
which I can almost certainly say that this is probably a manic episode of some sort.
Yeah, I think it's a schizophrenic or something else, unfortunately, or maybe just a huge
drugs.
Hard drunk or drugs.
Could be either drinking or drug related as well. But
they may have been some LSD, some crystal meth. This
one's definitely
huge. I don't know.
Definitely different than our normal how many locos. This one we have very little information as far as history of abuse with this person or anything like that, and we don't even have their name, so we can't do any private research on it, and we don't have really much other than this one little article that talks about a person who's setting up bar stools as a barricade in the middle of the road, so
they could have a beer or something. So
yeah.
So what are your takes on this? I mean, for me, I don't know how many locals I'm going to go with, because I think this was just a mental breakdown, or this, and that they didn't have it in the news the next day. It might have been a guy they're used to dealing with who might be have some issues going on upstairs, to be honest. So I don't know where to go with this one. I mean, I think it's pretty ridiculous, to be honest.
I mean, I have an idea of a number. And
Are you thinking you're going to go locos plus mental illness on this one? This is loco illness.
there is an additive, but it's not mental illness.
Okay.
I have a number plus something else.
Okay, sounds good. Are we just gonna kind of convert this into a loc?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah. So
we're converting the illness into a loc too.
Here's my thought:
Sure.
it's a one loco. Excuse me, 4 loco. So they had 1 full can.
Sure.
And it was laced with like PCP,
Oh,
angel
yeah.
dust
Oh,
or
yeah.
LSD or something.
Oh, I
like
agree. So it's the 4 loc plus the LSD.
Yeah.
Okay. Holy smokes, that sounds
Yeah.
like a fucking recipe for disaster.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Could
hey,
you imagine if they made a LSD loco?
dude?
You can't come back. From
You
that.
know, at some point somebody has tried something like that where they were like,
I'm gonna
"What
drop
if?"
acid into my loc.
Yeah. What if we took this Red Bull or this energy drink and we also put in a psychedelic?
You instantly get transformed into the 4th loco, the 4 loco.
Exactly.
The 4 loco dimension.
This is a very psychedelic kind of inception thing.
You've heard of 3D, but have you heard of 4LD?
Yeah.
4
Have you heard of
dimension.
4 loco dimensional?
Holy
Fucked.
smokes! Yeah, like you actually might just be dead and in some kind of like afterlife type thing. We don't
you
know what
probably
happened.
are.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
probably dead. to
You're
be
probably
honest.
just dead. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we're going 4 loco plus the LSD on this one. This is
Right.
our first LSD loc. Hit the gavel. All right, today we're here with Cameron from Pour Another Round, one of my favorite podcasts I love listening to. Obviously, I love beer, and you kind of all know that, I'm sure, by now. So, Cameron, can you talk about the podcast and how you guys kind of got together and started doing what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I think you just nailed it that we also like beer a lot. So that was a big driving factor there. But I had actually written a book on the history of brewing in Green Bay, and that got published in October of 2020.
Awesome.
A weird time in all of our lives in the world. So that was kind of a cool thing to have come out during, a global pandemic. But that didn't necessarily fulfill I was looking for the next project and kind of the next creative outlet, and to keep that beer pattern going and the passion for it there. Reached out to Jonathan and said, I got this idea to start a podcast. We like beer. We are both in the marketing industry. We both know how to tell stories. There are these beer podcasts already out there where, people want to like dissect the beer and get really scientific with it. And Jonathan and I are not scientists. So
Yeah. No, I feel you on that one.
Let's just talk to these breweries and find out their own story. Cause every brewery, relatively speaking, has an IPA or a Hefe or a whatever. So
Yeah.
why would I want to go to one brewery over another? Because each one of them has their own story. So that was
Right.
really the spawn of it all.
That's awesome. And yeah, so we were going to ask too. So I just listened to the Oktoberfest episode. Do you guys have a favorite autumn or Oktoberfest beer that you recommend our listeners check out?
I am not the hugest pumpkin beer fan.
Yeah, me neither.
But I've found 2 that I really like. Pumpkin is one of my favorites. I haven't
Okay.
been able to find that yet this year.
Yeah.
However, they came out with a pumpkin spiced hard coffee. So I think they're kind of going with the, looking the basic bitch of beer drinkers, I suppose, if you will.
Right.
Yeah. You got Ugg boots and
Yep.
some capris, right?
Yep.
So
Exactly. And then Lakefront Brewery also has a really good pumpkin beer. Badger State's Oxkey is one of my favorites as well.
okay.
Awesome.
No, that's awesome. I love, I love IPAs. I love the whole range, but the fall beers, like I love fall. I mean, I not so much like you said, I don't really love the pumpkin beers, but I love like that Marzen lagers.
Yeah.
Kind of that like autumn box, the kind of the middle of the road beers where they're not high on the IBU scales, but they still have that like great autumn taste. It warms you up a little bit. Heck yeah.
And I'm very much a seasonal drinker, so and then getting into those like to the full on stouts and porters in the winter. So yeah, this is one of my favorite beer drinking seasons for sure.
Yeah, and so I have another one for you. I know I've listened to the show. Did you guys have like a brewery that like is really like sticks out to you as being one of your funnest interviews?
I think the one that meant the most to me was Milwaukee Brewing Company. I went to college in Milwaukee, Milwaukee Brewing Company was really my first introduction to craft beer. Once I came of age, that was the beer that I drank, was Milwaukee Brewing Company. So that was almost like a surreal moment to get to talk to the Milwaukee Brewing Company and just hear their stories straight from them. I hung out at their brewery many times.
Yeah.
So that was super cool.
That's so cool. Okay, and so before we let you go, we always do this with our guests. We always find out how Wisconsin are you, and we usually ask about 8 to 10 questions where we try to find out and gauge some great Wisconsin questions. So I'm going to start, and you just let me know.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the first one I got for you is for beer brats. Obviously, you guys have tried a million types of beers now. Do you have one that you recommend trying to make a good beer brat with?
All right, I'm going to go with such a classic answer. There's nothing better than making a bratwurst that has been cooked in PBR first.
Oh,
Sure.
You know what? That is a common answer, and I love PBR. I'm not gonna lie. If I'm gonna go cheap, I usually get PBRs or Busch
absolutely.
Lattes. I love those. They're so good. All right, so the next one. You're from Milwaukee, or you've been to Milwaukee and kind of stayed there. Have you ever closed Wolski's?
I absolutely have closed Wolski's.
Awesome.
I have a sticker proudly on display on my beer refrigerator in my basement right now that I actually closed Wolski's. It was fantastic. And that's definitely one of those Milwaukee bucket list things that everyone should do at least once.
I agree.
Totally agree.
And then so I get the next one I got is another surrounding Milwaukee area, Summerfest. I'm sure you've been there at some point, but do you have a band or like a memorable moment that you went to Summerfest?
Absolutely. I used to live right up the road from Summerfest, so I could hear some of the music coming from there as you're walking on the lakefront there.
Yeah.
But I think the best concert that I ever saw there was The Offspring. I grew up, high school listening to punk music, so it was super awesome to see Offspring at Summerfest.
I loved Offspring. Smash was like my favorite album.
That's one of
that.
Yeah,
I
for
was
sure.
just gonna say
So
that's
good.
literally right up our alley. We grew up listening to Offspring, Blink-182, NoFX,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure. Real Big Fish, Less Than Jake.
Oh
Exactly.
yeah,
the whole
heck
gamut.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the next one I got is kind of a one we have to ask everyone. Have you ever tailgated at a Brewers, Packers, or Badgers game, or all three?
I've only been to one Badgers game.
Okay.
I hang out at Packers games often. I'm gonna ruin my reputation on this podcast right now that I grew up in the Chicagoland area.
Okay.
Oh boy.
So I fully love the Packer game day. It's very college game day to me. So whether you're tailgating, whether you're just hanging out at one of the surrounding bars, it's got that college game day vibe to it. So while I've only been to one Badger game, I feel like every Packer game that I go to and tailgate at, it's got that college atmosphere to it as well. So I love tailgating for Packer games.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so the next one I got for you, we have to ask this one. So when it comes to like a brewery, not in Wisconsin, but is there one, even like an interview or one you visited outside of Wisconsin that you recommend listeners coming out? Because I know they can kind of check out your podcast, and you guys interviewed a ton of these guys. Do you have a favorite one you've been to?
I think I'm not sure where they're at with their tap room. They closed it down during the pandemic. But generally speaking, my favorite brewery is Three Floyds out of Munster, Indiana.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
So get their
Gumball Head, right?
their zombie dust, their
Oh,
gumball
Zombie
head.
Dust,
oh
yeah.
God, it's so good.
Fantastic
Yeah.
beer. So regardless if you can go to the tap room or not, I would highly recommend picking up some Three Floyds beer. That's got to be my favorite brewery of all time.
Yeah.
Followed closely by Toppling Goliath Pseudo Stew.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that is a
Absolutely.
phenomenal beer. Is that the one with the T-Rex on it?
Yeah, and how do you
Oh,
not
hell
like
yeah.
a beer that has a
We've done that.
dinosaur on it?
Hell yeah, exactly. So,
Who doesn't like it?
I know for me, it was New Belgium was pretty cool, and Founders were like two of my favorites outside of Wisconsin. They
Yeah.
were really cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
And one of my favorite brewery tours is actually in Chicago. It's Lagunitas. They started out in California. Now they have a huge production space in Chicago, and that brewery tour is fantastic. You kind of walk into the brewery and feel like you're going through that weird tunnel, like Willy Wonka style, with the neon lights and the trippiness of it all. But then the brewery tour is on top of the production facility. You're walking on a catwalk the entire way around. So that's a super cool experience.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so then I got two more for you today. The next one I got for you is supper clubs. Do you have a favorite one you recommend to our listeners and to go and check out?
My favorite supper club is in northern Wisconsin. I have a family cabin in Boulder Junction.
Okay, yeah.
So Guides Inn is absolutely the best supper club I've ever been to and highly recommend.
Okay, yeah, awesome. And so that was going to be lead to my next question here. Have you ever had a muddled old fashioned, and are you a sweet or sour kind of guy?
I love me an old fashioned. I am a whiskey old fashioned sour with green olives fan.
Oh wow, yeah,
Whoa.
that's the original recipe. You're not even going the brandy. You're going the original whiskey
What I would highly
recipe.
recommend.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time, Cameron. And where can we find you guys? Like social media and everything, and just let our listeners know where they can find you guys.
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Pour Another Round. You can find our podcast on any platform that you listen to, anything you listen to, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and then you can check out our website as well at pouranotherround.com.
Awesome, Cameron. Thank you for your time on this Sunday. Packers are playing, so it's going to be a good day. But yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time, and we're going to keep listening, and I hope we can collaborate soon and go on a couple brewery tours.
Yeah, we'll be in touch for sure. Cheers, guys.
All
Cheers,
right,
Cameron.
Cheers.
All right, bye.
All right, that concludes this episode of Wisconsin Drunken History Podcast.
If you enjoyed this vulgar display of Wisconsin, please like and subscribe on whatever streaming platform you prefer. And remember to hit the bell on YouTube to be notified when we release new content.
Also, if you have any suggestions or ideas for future episodes, please send us an email at widrunkenhistory@gmail.com or head over to our Facebook and Instagram pages.
Thanks again for listening, and remember, as always,
Watch out for deer on your way home.